Hey there. Sometimes on these weekend videos, I like to zoom out and talk about the bigger picture. So, looking at the outer planets. And today, I thought we could focus on Neptune in Pisces now that Neptune has retrograded back into Pisces and just review and revisit those themes a bit. Review and revisit are great terms for retrograde planets, right? And we also have coming up here soon Uranus retrograding back into Taurus. So we'll probably touch a bit on that as well. I'm Marina Orms here with your astro perspective for Sunday, October 26th. So, bigger picture. And what is Neptune about? If not the bigger picture? So, Neptune is the planet of spirituality and transcendence. It speaks to how we are spiritual beings and what it means to connect with the bigger picture and whatever that means for each of us. It may mean love. It might mean a sense of compassion and connectedness to our fellow human beings or fellow other beings, right, on the planet, different forms of life that we share this earth with. It could be also ways that we connect with our hearts, with nature, right? It's about that bigger picture of what goes beyond us and our little selves, our ego selves, our day-to-day experience. So how we connect with what gives meaning to our lives. That is what Neptune is about. And of course, it could be spiritual practices you have or things that help you feel that bigger sense of belonging in a bigger picture. We all have, our own approach to that. So, when Neptune, the planet of spirituality, is in Pisces, the sign of transcendence and interconnectedness and oneness, and where boundaries dissolve, and we recognize or we have that potential to become aware of how there really is no separation between ourselves and our fellow human and otherwise beings around us. So that feeling of being interconnected with all that is, with that sense of oneness, with that reminder that what happens to our neighbors impacts us, and vice versa. What we choose and how we choose to be in the world impacts those around us, and even when that is intangible. So sometimes we can make a tangible difference, right? Doing something that we see the result from what we're doing, and we get to see I did that thing and something good happened, and that makes me feel great. But sometimes it's intangible. Sometimes it's a smile that you give to a stranger and you never know, right? You'll never know how it impacted that person. Or it's a random act of kindness, or it's just your way of being in the world without feeling like you need some sort of validation for your kindness, your random acts of trying to be a good person. And so when we have that experience of being our best selves, of sharing, of caring for one another and our fellow human beings, we embody that spirit of compassion and empathy and shared experiences that Neptune invites us to remember. Neptune gets it, it is a planet that has to do with transcending boundaries. And when it is in the sign of Neptune, it is like losing your boundaries in the great ocean of being. You become a drop. It's hard to discern. It's hard to understand or find directions. So in other words, Neptune in Pisces is like it's like fog on steroids. It's like losing that sense of direction, the way that we can orient ourselves, our ability to know what's true, what's false, to discern between what's fact, what's fiction, what is black, what is white, right? Like it's just dissolving these ways that we have of orienting and understanding. So, like when the fog rolls in and it obscures the signs on the road, right? You can't read the road signs because they're obscured by the fog. The guardrails, the guideposts, everything is just kind of dissolves in this mist. It's hard to know where you're going or how to get there. So you lose your sense of how you orient yourself and that ability to know what is right, what is wrong, what is, uh, just how things are done. So structures, right? We lose our sense of structure. We lose what guides and orients us. And those guides and those ways of orienting ourselves through structure are things that can and do change. They need to change sometimes. So if we have a structure in our lives, say you're living in a house and you're living in a place, a city, and maybe you have a job, and that job and that city and that house sometimes needs to change. Sometimes you need to move to a different city, or you buy a new house, or you change jobs. Sometimes the structures and the ways that we orient ourselves change. And that is not necessarily a bad thing, right? It can be an opportunity for growth, for a new beginning, for something new to start. But when we feel that just that loss of direction without any clarity about what to do about it, it can be very disorienting. So, Neptune first went into Pisces in 2011 so retrograded back to Aquarius and into Pisces in 2012, where it stayed until earlier this year, 2025. And that time that Neptune spent in Pisces, right, dissolving, obscuring guardrails, signposts, our ways of orienting the systems and structures that provide guidance to our lives become obscured, become energetically. We lose our sense of how we orient. We lose our sense of which way to go. And you can see how this took place over the course of those years and how we're in it even now still, how we have lost some of that sense of what is up, what is down, how do we orient ourselves, what do I believe, what is true, what is fact, what is fiction, what is something I should trust? What is something I should not trust? How do we orient ourselves? So when Neptune is in Pisces, as it is now, so now it went into Aries and then turned retrograde and has now retrograde gone backward back into the sign of Pisces, where it will be until late January of 2026. We've got this energy of getting confused, getting lost, losing our way. So, misinformation, disinformation. You can see how the process of things that we used to always be able to trust in our media, in our government, that suddenly became, or maybe not so suddenly, maybe it was over time, became sort of wishy-washy or unclear, or like what information should you believe, what information should you not believe, and this opportunity to be attracted to easy answers. So just like Neptune and Pisces both can be associated with themes of substance abuse or losing touch with reality, those kinds of temptations are there to to want the fantasy, right? To want what's being offered that feels good, that feels easy. And you can see how some of these things that came into our awareness during those years having to do with for the first time talking about our government officials lying to us, right? So lies and misinformation and disinformation for the for I don't know if it's the first time, but starting to have this discussion about gaslighting and manipulation and what is it and how does it operate in the wider society and through information and propaganda and how information is conveyed and where it's coming from and who's the power behind it and all of those kinds of questions, right? Regardless of, what you think is right or wrong, these are themes that came up during that time. So, alternate realities sort of blossomed, mushroomed, right? And the option to follow a ideology or a belief system that may or may not have that may or may not be grounded in something permanent, right? Something based in scientific evidence, for example. So all of that, and what is the positive, right? Because there's always an invitation. And when you have a Neptune transit to your chart, there's also this invitation to, what is the higher purpose of that transit? Because certainly we can see that, getting lost, losing your way, having you know delusions or misinformation or getting confused about what to believe, all of that, and the temptation to follow the fantasy, the temptation to get lost in the easy answers or the substance abuse or whatever, right? Maybe it's information abuse, I don't know. But there is, the point is that there is a higher possibility here, and that's what we're going to talk about. So as we go back to Neptune being in Pisces again, we're revisiting some of these themes. And some of the crazy comes out of the woodwork, right? And even within ourselves, we start to see, oh, here's where I can have that potential to lose touch with reality or to be confused about who I am or where I belong. So the dissolving process is happening, that fog coming in and making us feel confused. So that's what we're dealing with. So, what is the higher purpose? The higher purpose of Neptune is to help us connect with a bigger picture. And so this is the place where we need to get our spiritual needs met. What is a spiritual need? It's hard to describe, right? Because it's not meant to be described. It's felt. And so it is maybe, for example, the way that you feel when you are in nature, the way that that you feel when you are with someone you love, and you feel that flow of love and that flow of things being right. It is that way that you listen to your heart when you feel that sense of wisdom. And when something is true wisdom that's speaking to you, that's helping you awaken, that's helping enlighten you, or helping you feel like, oh, aha, I get it. So that is the higher purpose of Neptune. We have to be able to discern between the fantasy or the temptation and what is truly heart opening wisdom or connection with our bigger spiritual needs and that feeling of belonging in the bigger picture, that connection with unconditional love. So Neptune also and Pisces again on Neptune on steroids in Pisces is also bringing us the capacity to dream, right? To transcend, to get outside of what bounds us. So when you go to sleep at night and you dream, you are not having your daily, ordinary life experience. You're having a dream where the rules change, right? Maybe you can fly. Maybe, I mean, dreams it could be good or bad, right? But the point is that they don't follow the normal laws of physics. so so in your dreams, you can do things that you can't necessarily do, right? You the limitations dissolve, the boundaries dissolve. So when you dream, you also can expand beyond what limits your thinking, right? So, imagination and the ability to imagine is your ability to get beyond what limits your thinking. So, when you imagine, you can think in bigger picture terms. You can connect with spirituality, maybe with possibilities, with the divine, with wisdom, with something that is outside of your normal limitations. And that capacity to imagine, to dream, if you will, to get beyond what feels limiting is how we connect with that bigger picture of what our hearts really want, what we're really here to do. And if we are, this is a perspective we can have, right? If we are spiritual beings having a human experience, which I think you can see it from all different perspectives. I think, but it's valuable to me to have this exercise of thinking of yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience, because when you think about doing it that way, it's like, what are you here to learn? Why would things be happening the way they are happening? For what purpose, right? What purpose does that serve your spirit, your spiritual needs? So, this is all coming back to the work we are doing with Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces. So, if you are feeling um, that disconnect from reality, that confusion, that sense of overwhelm sometimes, it can help to get yourself grounded and remember that this is also a time to imagine, to dream, to really connect with wisdom, spiritual truths, bigger picture spiritual principles. And that is the lesson and the opportunity of this time with Neptune retrograding back into Pisces. The opportunity is to connect with a bigger picture of truth. And if we take, it's up to us whether we take advantage of this opportunity or not. But having a spiritual practice, reminding yourself or getting your spiritual needs met, reminding yourself of your own spiritual truths, the bigger picture principles that guide your life, what's important to you, what gives meaning to your life, the people you love, the places you care about, the things that open your heart. When you connect with those, they can help you to get clear. And so we are not looking for the signs anymore, right? The signs that have been obscured by the fog on the side of the road. Maybe the signs are lost in the fog, but maybe your heart is guiding you. And that is the point, is that it's time, right? It's important to listen to your own deeper truth, your wisdom, and to be careful, right? To ask yourself, is this a fantasy? Is this my own temptation to want to go the easy route? And this is true for all of us. We all can check in with ourselves about where we might get lost from where we really need to be, what's really important for our spiritual selves and what we're here to learn. so we can connect with that bigger picture of truth, of wisdom, of what our hearts know to be true and what our hearts want. And we can imagine outside the box. We can imagine healing. We can imagine love. We can imagine caring and kindness in that interconnected way that brings healing and hope to humanity. So it's not about losing, it's not about disengaging from the actions maybe you need to take or the things you need to do to make choices in your life. But it is about allowing those choices to be guided by the right principles. And so this time of Neptune retrograding back into Pisces is a great time to reconnect with what brings meaning to your life, what's important to you in that bigger picture. What are your guiding principles? What matters to you? Why are you here? Right? Like what are your spirit guides cheering you on to do? And just getting clear about that can help you orient yourself when those signs are sometimes obscured. You're listening to a different navigation system, if you will. So that is Neptune retrograding back into Pisces. And now, coming up here around, I believe it's November 8th, we have Uranus retrograding back into Taurus. So Uranus went into Taurus in 2018, 2019, and Uranus, the planet of shakeup, of change, also of authenticity and freedom, going into the planet or the sign Taurus, that has to do with stability and routine and normalcy and what we can depend on and what we can count on and what we know will always be there. So you put the planet of earthquakes and lightning bolts into the sign of normalcy and you get disruption to normal. And is that not what we have been experiencing in recent years? So Uranus this year went into Gemini, bringing that planet of earthquakes and lightning bolts into an air sign from the earth sign Taurus of what's normal and stable and dependable into the air sign of Gemini, which is all about change, information gathering, communications, curiosity, and open mind, and just kind of taking us into very new territory with shakeups in our thinking, shakeups in ideas and communication, where things can happen much more rapidly because we're not talking about shakeups to what is normal anymore. Although, when Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, we will be back in that place of revisiting what normal, what things that are normal that we have lost, what things that felt normal or felt like reality that you can count on that have just straight up changed. um so what does that look like? How are we orienting ourselves with that Taurus perspective? So how do we need to get grounded, and what can we find to help ground ourselves in a world that feels topsy-turvy? And so connecting with coming back to the very basics, your body, your breath, your ability to feel gravity, right? Gravity is still there. It's still dependable. The day and night, right? The rhythms and cycles of life, they are still there. So connect with what grounds you, what reminds you that life goes on, that things are normal. If they're not normal, at least, that the things you care about, the ways that they are still there. So the things, the places that you love, the ways that you connect with the earth, your garden, your nature, your special places in nature, all of those are ways of getting grounded And so as Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, again, that is November 8th, I think. We've got a return to that need to find our stability, to reground ourselves, to connect with what makes us feel grounded and what is still dependable in our lives, and to deepen those connections, right? To realize the importance and the value of the things that we do have, the gifts of the earth, the gifts of the people that we care about, the people in our lives, the way that we take care of one another, and those kinds of things. So getting grounded and deepening into what helps you to feel that sense of belonging and that sense of the value and the gifts of the earth and the world around you. So those are some thoughts as we return. These planets re-enter these signs that they have recently left. Remember, they are going from, in the process of going from Earth and water, so Pisces and Taurus, into Aries and Gemini, fire and air, very different vibe. But now with this retrograde process, we get to revisit the earth and water energy and connect with our spiritual needs as well as our needs for connection and creating stability in our lives and what that looks like. So, opportunities to revisit those themes. Thanks so much for being here. I am Marina Orms. You can book a reading with me at astrologyheals.com. I am here every day with astrology for unshakable self-care. So hit the subscribe button for those daily videos, and I will see you next time. Astrologyheals.com is my website, and I have a member site at transformationalastrology.com. All right, bye for now.